Welcome to the Kent Lapp Podcast.
I want to circle back to something you said about not asking your kids, what do you want to do? It's a fair question, but you have to also understand that they're going to answer it from a really ignorant perspective. They've only seen what you do. And as a matter of fact, I worked at MDON and WebMD, and my kids had no idea what Dad does other than go to meetings, talk on the phone, seems to be stressed sometimes, and actually a lot of times. And then, I had to sort of dumb it down and say, what does Dad do? I help doctors get paid. That's all they knew.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because if you think about what a limited view versus if you go back 40, 50 years and it was more of a rural lifestyle or you lived in a manufacturing community, people knew what work was. They saw work. Okay. Now our kids don't see what we do. And so it's made it even tougher to answer that question of, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
So when my daughter was about to head off, my oldest daughter heading off to the University of Richmond. And so and we learned a lot as you work 4 kids through post-secondary and college. But she had chosen it, and I asked her the basic question, honey, what do you want to do? And now she's old enough to give me that incredibly honest answer. Dad, I have no idea. And so she was really in her second year of college before we had U Science really developed. And so gave it to her because she called home. And she's up at the University of Richmond. And she calls home, and it's a great school, good liberal arts program kind of thing. But she calls home with her winter schedule or second semester schedule probably in November of her sophomore year. And my wife was smart enough to go, honey, why don't you walk through your schedule with your dad? Because here I'm years into U Science. And she gives me this beautiful list of intellectual fodder. I'm going to take Civil War history, Russian literature, and all that. And I'm like, wow, all right, Logan, let me tell you what's going to happen. I said, you're going to call home in, let's say 5 months from now. And you're going to go, Mom, Dad, I want to go overseas and study for a semester. And we're going to say, great. And I'm going to ask you exactly one question. Are you going to graduate on time? And you're going to go, I don't know. But you're going to run around campus for a week. And then you're going to call me and go, no. And then I'm going to respond, no. And you're going to have 2 very disappointed people on the phone. I said, why don't you meet me halfway? Let's figure out what your major is. Because the key to getting out of a 4-year college on time is you've got to unlock your major classes your sophomore year spring semester. If you don't, you don't graduate on time and you get out of rhythm. And so sure enough, I looked at her U Science results and I had a split screen, her U Science results on one and the Richmond course catalog on the other half of the screen. And, she's my most earthy child. So she's the one that if you give her an interest survey, it's going to say you should be a plumber, a welder, sheet metal worker, all that, because she's really into environmental and all that. But she's got the same analytic horsepower as my other daughter. And so when you take the intersection of those aptitudes and those interests, you get things like geographer, geographic information specialist, all that. I'd never heard of any of these careers. But sure enough, they have a bunch of course offerings. And so what she does now is she is a geographic information specialist for an environmental consulting firm. And she helps companies actually do permitting for bridges, water infrastructure, and all that up in Cincinnati. And so, again, it's just an example of aptitudes and interest combined. And yes, she did go overseas. She actually went to Tanzania and studied land tenure and how it moved from tribes to whatever, but she did graduate on time. Okay. And I did get to go over and hike Kilimanjaro with her.
Oh, that's very cool. So your second daughter, same thing. U-Science changed the trajectory of her life.
Yes,
right?
That was my oldest daughter. She just happened to be ahead of when we had U-Science developed. So she went to University of Richmond sort of with the I don't know.
Yeah.
We caught her sophomore year. My second daughter, Ansley, we got her before she applied. And so she went straight through.
Wow. Those are incredible stories. Yeah. So what age... first of all, I had a question. Okay, so when you started January 2013, you were at that point, you were focused on high school kids, right? You weren't doing middle school at that point.
Well, for two reasons. And the most practical reason is that's where the technology was. So we work with a great group at the Ball Foundation out of Glen Ellen, Illinois, and licensed their aptitude measures. They've been studying aptitudes for 40 years. And just a great group of folks. They're now investors. All that. And what nobody had ever normed or developed the aptitude measures for middle school. So the earliest we could really give them are age 15 or 16. Okay, that's when they were normed for. And if you think about the state of what aptitudes were, we actually had to solve for four things to get them to actually work in this environment. One, time. Because you could when we looked at the best career guidance out there, you could go to Johnson O'Connor in Atlanta and spend 2 days and $700-800. Now it's maybe, I don't know what it costs, and get exactly what U-Science now delivers. Awesome. They're a great group. They do it, but we had to solve for time because we needed to do it in less than 2 hours. Second, money. We need to figure out how to deliver it to a consumer for $29 and to educational systems for less than $10 a student. Third, knowledge. Johnson O'Connor you don't need a master's degree. You're not going to have a master's degree or somebody with a PhD to go through the results with you. So we had to create the content so that it could be self-driven and a personal experience, but make it incredibly affirmative. So you're not going to see scores at all, because kids are taught to focus in school about what they don't do well and bring everything up to a minimum standard. Mm-hmm. Whereas in life, who cares what you don't do well? Let somebody else do that. Focus on your aces.
Totally agree.
So everything we do is about helping somebody uncover their aces.